Well, hi, I'm Jay Arthur, author of Lean Six Sigma for Hospitals and QI Macros. Back in the mid-1800s, there was a cholera outbreak in London. And Jon Snow, not of Game of Thrones, but Dr. Jon Snow, said, I think there's a pattern here. And he went out and figured out that everybody who caught cholera was getting water from the Broad Street pump. Now back then there was no indoor running water, so you had to take your pail, go out to the pump, and get your water for your home or your business or your restaurant. Now he told the powers that be that this is where the cholera was coming from, and they questioned him, but they acquiesced and they said, okay, so they took the pump handle off of the pump. And guess what? Cholera cases went gazunk. So there are hot zones and there are cold zones. We may not know all of the causes, but in this epidemic with COVID, there are hot zones. So New York has over a third of the total cases and over almost half the deaths. So that's a hot zone, right? I always think of things in terms of the 450 rule, that 4% of whatever is causing over half of the waste, rework, lost profit, disease, whatever. And so what we have to do is find ways to pinpoint that 4%. Now in Denver, our daughter lives next to an ER doc and his hospital has had 0 cases of COVID. That's a cold zone, right? Cold zones. And then we have to be able to figure out when something's starting to warm up. But from statistical process control, we know that if you have 6 points in a row ascending, or 7 points, depending on which rules you follow, then that signals a process shift. That means something's heating up. And when it does that, guess what we should do? We should figure out how to quarantine that area. Now, I don't think blanket shutdowns are the way to go about this, right? But we don't have any methods to figure out how to pinpoint things. And COVID trackers is a new job title that I just read about today. So they're going to be tracking where people came from. And I also saw that Apple for the iPhone and Google for the Android are going to figure out how to pool their data to figure out when your cell phone was GPSed or calling off the same tower or whatever it was, when did you come into the same place together? And that's probably a hot zone. That's what big data is for, right? Processing millions, if not billions of calls to figure out where these people intersected. Now it could be a hair salon, could be a restaurant, could be a workplace, who knows? But if we can pinpoint that, guess what? We could quarantine just that hot spot. And we wouldn't have to shut down everything around it. That might be a cold spot. So I think we have to figure out how we're going to do this, right? Because a global shutdown of the economy is going to be catastrophic from an economic standpoint. So that's the 450 rule, right? And I recently read a study and said that, well, when it came to crime in any city in America, they did a bunch of studies in different cities, 4 blocks out of 100 had over half the crime. 4 blocks. And if you increase patrolling in there, guess what? Crime would drop off, but it wouldn't shift out into the other parts of the city. They didn't seem to walk out of their 4 blocks to do crime. No, they did it all in that same 4 blocks. So I think that's true now, right? 4% is having half the waste and rework and illness and whatever. Right? New York City with a third of the cases and almost half the deaths is a hot zone. But that's not the entire country, all right? So this is not unusual. And I looked at the CDC map and it looks like any state that has a large international airport, which is a hub for major airlines, is probably one of the ones that are hotter than the others. So I'm guessing a lot of this has to do with international travel and then it spreads out from there. So I'm Jay Arthur. That's my improvement insight for this week. Let's create a hassle-free America. Let's create a well and illness-free America. Let's go out and improve something this week.